Let's just get a bit of what's going on in Mombasa. I mentioned earlier that Interior Minister Fred Matiang'i has started a three-day conference there with the Parliamentary Committee on Security. And yes, let's listen in.
In this area, working with the NCTC to ensure that we address this even through working with the Ministry of Education, curriculum development, looking at the content that is going into our schools and whether or not we are providing an environment for the radicalization of our kids. Criminal cat rustling remains a problem. And I am describing it as criminal cat rustling. Every time this issue is raised, people tell us, oh no, you know, among certain communities it's cultural to steal livestock from one another. It is not true, and let me be very blunt here, it is not true. Cat rustling in parts of this country is an industry. It's a crime that is well oiled and supported by structures. We will not discuss everything with you, but there's a new approach that Mr. Boynet and the DIGs have been working on, which we support as a ministry to crack down on this madness. Because it is an industry. We are following it and we are taking a different approach this time. And we are confident we will sort it out. We will go to the networks and we will follow these networks and hit them hard. Because in some parts of the country, cat rustling is an industry. So we shouldn't hide behind, culture and say, oh, when people get circumcised, they need animals to go and marry and so on. There is that. That's fine. There is that. But the bulk of it is actually supported by criminal cartels that go on. And those animals move. We have been doing this tracing. I don't want to discuss everything the media is here. We are determined this time around that we will hit and hit hard and sort this thing out once and for all, because it's not good for the country, it is hurting communities, and it is interfering with economic activity in some parts of the country. Organized crime groups, there's some areas where the organized crime, we tackle them. Numbers have reduced significantly, but the culture and perpetration still exist, and we follow them. Political intolerance is something that you will talk even more eloquently than I can on this issue. We've seen it recently in some parts of the country, even in peacetime when elections are not happening. People organizing hoodlums to go and heckle their opponents, making an industry out of preparing to go and heckle your opponents or people you do not like. No one should pretend here that, these things are done spontaneously, that you'll go to a meeting and people will spontaneously heckle Honorable Wafula Amunyinyi. Somebody must have paid people and carried them there to go and heckle Honorable Wafula Amunyinyi, for reasons that they themselves would know. And this is a culture that has nothing to do with the individual politicians. I mean, because if you don't like Honorable Amunyinyi, you'll have a way of expressing yourself, but you don't have to collect groups and take them to a rally where Honorable Amunyinyi is going to make a speech and you heckle him. If you don't want the speech, you can walk away. But the question is, we have seen this and aspects of it that have reared their ugly head. Drug and substance abuse. These cross-border conflicts. There are parts of this country where we have challenges about border problems. Small arms and light weapons. Again, this is something that will occupy you, honorable members. We are unfortunate in the sense that, we are bordering countries that have got serious challenges. South Sudan, Somalia. Recently, there were some challenges in Ethiopia. And, right in Central Africa, there are issues down that side. And some of these issues affect us in the sense that some small arms find their way through our borders into the country. Human trafficking. If you ask Ambassador Saleh, our regional commissioner in the north, and Buanogalo, our regional commissioner in Eastern Province, the problem of people being loaded in lorries to find their way to Nairobi so that they can go into Tanzania, and then from there, because of SADC, they can find their way to South Africa, and so on and so forth. It's an issue we deal with all the time. And we're doing our best. The numbers have reduced drastically, and we continue to work hard on this, but it's an issue that we have to deal with, and honorable members, it will occupy you at some point. We have, huge numbers of our young people are unemployed. This also presents a challenge, as it were, because if you have idle capacity, that idle capacity is easier to be influenced and to be used for crime. Lastly, land conflicts. What will occupy you, honorable members, as you go forward, is that we have very fundamental and historical land conflicts in this country. Some of them are political. Some of them have got to do with historical issues that we are the unfortunate people who have to resolve at this point in time. In some areas, some of these land problems are more explosive than honorable members you know or you think. In areas of Naivasha, for example, you know, what is going on in areas of Naivasha, in parts of Coast Province, you know. And of course, you saw the other day the case of Mwea. What we have in the country, and then there's a culture that we need to find a way of dealing with. I pray that in my lifetime, I will see a decisive legislative solution to the land buying company crisis in this country. You know all these things that started with Ngwataniro, Mtokanio, and so on. And some of these land buying companies which have turned to become avenues for crime and avenues for mismanagement of resources, and they pose challenges to all of us. This again will occupy a lot of your time. Yesterday, my colleague, the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, and myself had to suspend what is going on in Mwea. I can tell you, as a honest public servant, that the preliminary reports we have about what's going on in that place, I can say it here without fear of doubt or contradiction. The best way to describe it is sleazy. It stinks to the high heavens. You can see clearly, you know, a somewhat criminal effort to resolve a problem that had a very well-organized way of sorting out, but it was infiltrated at some point by people who are not interested in solving the problem, but people who are interested in getting land. So elected public officials ended up getting 300 acres, 200 acres in a settlement scheme that was intended to settle peasants, and so on. Public officials, and I am not shy to say this here, public officials, including those who were given the responsibility to try and address the problem, found an avenue to allocate themselves land. So it has become a cocktail of chaos, as it were. So that's why CS Karone and I decided there is no way this can be resolved other than suspending it and relooking at it totally afresh. Ask Mr. Ogalo, our Regional Commissioner for Eastern Province. It's a serious issue. We have to relook at it again and find a way of resolving the issues. So that, first of all, justice is done. Two, so that the rightful people who are supposed to be resettled are actually resettled. And that is only a tip of the iceberg. There are so many land buying companies, cases of, you know, land challenges and so on. Mr. Chairman, I'm moving towards the end of my presentation. Our focus as a ministry will remain essentially driven by the needs of our citizens. As a ministry and as government, the President's instructions and directions are very clear. We want this time around to approach security from a citizen-focused perspective. But most of the decisions we take are focused on the citizens so that we can help in the achievement of the Big Four. Because the focus of the Big Four is the welfare of the individual citizen. That's why we are going to invest heavily our time, our resources, and the energies of our officials in ensuring that we provide security and safety for Kenyans and their property so that they can prosper and so that our nation can grow. That is how we will achieve industrialization. That is how we will achieve universal health care. That's how we will achieve self-sufficiency in various ways, and so on and so forth. Over the years, I will gloss over this, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity when both our Inspector General Police and Dr. Kibicho will talk extensively about police reforms. A number of reforms have taken place in the sector, and the honorable members, at some point, I want to suggest, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, that I think these members, as the committee that deals with our security, is entitled to get the detailed blueprint on police reforms, look at all the documents that we have prepared for police reforms, the great work that has been done by the Inspector General and the team, the new curriculum for the police, the new mobility structure for the police, and so on, so that you actually interact with it and see how the police is changing and the training that we are doing, as it were. And reforms have happened in the correctional services, looking at funding streams, looking at improved facilities. We are targeting the congestion of our prisons, as it were. PS Cheruyot will talk some more about this. We want to see whether we can actually get up to 10,000 plus or so prisoners, petty offenders who can, engage in community service so that we decongest the prisons, as it were. We are looking at our gambling infrastructure, and honorable members, this is one where I honestly want to plead with you. If you can help us also, this thing is destroying our children, and it's destroying villages and so on, as it were. The law may allow certain things, but we also need to find a way of acting in defense of our people. And so we will be taking very, very stringent actions on some of these things, and you will see. It's a small aspect I want to spend a minute on, that is strengthening the national government administration, organization, and our field offices. It is the directive of the President that we go back to strengthening the coordination of national government functions in the field by ensuring that we support the regional commissioners, the county commissioners, to coordinate the implementation of national government functions. So that now, going forward, honorable members, you are going to see much more proactive engagement of the regional commissioners and the county commissioners in the implementation of national government functions. There is no minister in this country or anywhere on earth who has the capacity to traverse the whole country and tell you all the roads have been implemented or done, all the money that has been allocated for dams has gone to the dams, all the money allocated for schools is being used for schools. That's why we would like regional commissioners and county commissioners now to take a proactive role in terms of ensuring that they look at government, national government functions in the field. So you will see every regional commissioner will have their blueprint of all national government projects in their region, and they will have the responsibility to report on those national government projects. It's the regional commissioner who should say the road, as indicated, has actually been done or it has not been done. It's the county commissioner who will confirm to us that the power project is actually going on as expected, or there are challenges in that particular area. We discovered that when we had a gap in between, when the national government administration was not effectively engaged, we lost a lot in the process. So we are doing this to reorient our national government administration officials on this so that they play a proactive and supervisory role in the management of national government functions as you go forward. There are many reforms in the immigration and population services, but I'm going to talk about two to a great extent. Honorable members, and all of us Kenyans in the room, this is something I would like to speak about with a lot of passion. Each one of us carries so many identification documents. You will have a new generation ID, you will have a new generation driving license, you have a PIN, you have a birth certificate, you will have an NHIF card. Soon enough, you will need a bag to carry your cards, as it were. Each one of us will need a handbag to carry your cards. You are so many people in one, as it were. We are beginning a new project. We are calling it Integrated Personal Identification System. We want to collapse our identification systems so that every Kenyan carries two documents. That's how the civilized world works. Your ID is supposed to be your driving license. Your ID can have information on your path, PIN, everything else. And your passport when you're traveling out of the country. There is no point of you can go to a hospital with your ID, your NHIV information is there. You don't have to go to NHIV and get another card from there and so on. Your ID should carry all that, so that you actually have a harmonized identification system. That way, we also manage our public data infrastructure sensibly. Because, you take your fingerprints at NHIF, you take them at NTSA, you take them at the Kipande, you take them, and you are the same person, it's the same hand. When you look at that, and you look at the cost of it, it is wasteful. We want to empower our police officers. Going forward, when we harmonize this integration, to be able where they arrest you with your ID card, they have all the information they need to deal with you. We can know whether you can drive or not. We can know whether you have an NHIF, where you live, where you come from, everything. Very simple as that. So that's going to be a key aspect of identification as we move forward. Secondly, another issue I want to speak to very candidly as a public official. For a long time, we have not cleaned up our systems of immigration in the country. I want to give you one example. Our official records show that there are 34,000 foreigners working in Kenya. You and I know that is not true. The real figure is that there are probably over 100,000, which means there are people doing jobs that Kenyans can do. And they have come in through back doors, through windows, and they have obtained what they purport to be work permits, but they are not work permits. So I am announcing, and I'm taking advantage of this opportunity to say this. From today going forward, we are going to give an electronic work permit card. We'll give a window of 60 days to give a card to everyone who's supposed to have a work permit in Kenya, genuinely. We'll make the exercise painless because we are going to approach it from a two-track perspective. Track A are almost the automatic entitlements. The missionary doctors who are working at the Mwea Hospital, for example, those are almost automatic entitlements. The foreign professors who have been hired in our universities, for instance, or people who come in by investment companies, and the investment companies process their work permits. We do it fast, and we give them the foreign work permit card. And then the others, we will scrutinize them much more rigorously. Give me one reason why we would give a work permit to someone who's coming to be an accountant in Kenya, an accountant in a country like ours. Or in the case of civil society, tell me why we would give a work permit to a program officer with the number of graduates we have, who have masters and so on and so forth. Then we are giving a foreigner a work permit to work in Kenya as a program officer in a civil society organization. After 60 days, Mr. Kinoti will conduct a sweep, and we will remove from our country people who do not desire to be here. And we are going to tighten. The process of work permits is changing radically beginning now, so that we clean this once and for all, and the system is going to end up with a digital register that can be searched at any point in time of who is allowed to work in our country. So I'm asking Kenyans, especially our good friends all over the place, that this will affect the individuals and those who have employed them in 60 days' time. And honorable members, on this one, you can allow us to work without mercy, because we have so many of our people who are unemployed, and then you bring people into the country and hire them as accountants and hire them as program officers and so on and so forth. You are denying Kenyans, employment, as it were. When I was in Jogoo House, we agreed in principle that every school in Kenya, including international schools, must teach Kiswahili and must teach Kenyan history until grade 9. And that is an avenue for, you cannot bring someone from the UK to teach Kenyan history or to teach Kiswahili. We have enough Kiswahili teachers in the country. So we will need justification for a school in Kenya that is not employing a Kenyan to teach Kiswahili or a Kenyan history, as it were. Because we have our own sons and daughters who have graduated from school, who can teach Kiswahili, who can teach history. And these games that we have played over along, they don't happen anywhere in the world. It's time for us to protect our country, as it were. Lastly, honorable members, we have worked on several legislative actions. Some of them will be contained in our report to you. And this is another area where I sincerely ask you to help us, because some of the actions we need to take will require legislative review, and there's nowhere else we can go other than to you as our committee. I am begging you, honorable members, please let us proceed with the Coast Guard legislation. We have lost so much when you look at the quantification of resources we have lost without a proper and institutionalized management of our resources on the coast. We can recover some ground, create more jobs, put money in the hands of our people, and manage ourselves better if we had the Coast Guard service bill in place. Lastly, in addition to all this that I've mentioned and the asks that I'm making, I want to request you that we continue to work together. In all times, we act with the best of intentions. It does not mean that sometimes we can make mistakes. When we do, we are humble enough to own up and deal with the mistakes. Sometimes challenges happen. They can frustrate. Let me share with you something I've been dealing with in the last 24 hours, and you will see why we are frustrated. About 2 days ago, we saw an incident in Nyeri during the by-election when someone slapped a lady in the presence and within the vicinity of a police station. And police officers were present. In the usual reporting every morning, the Regional Commissioner Central, who's here, told me, and that is a platform that we all share, now as he was reporting to the PS and myself, that that victim had been given a P3 and the people who perpetrated that act were supposed to be taken to court yesterday. The truth is this, and you'll be horrified, and that gives you an indication of why sometimes I feel frustrated. Those guys, they walked into a police station and walked out, spoke to a senior police officer in that police station, and walked out. What had happened between that senior police officer and the minders of those gentlemen is your guess as good as is my guess. So these guys, first of all, begin by lying to their regional commissioner. Then they lie to their regional police commander, who in turn lies to the DIG, police service, and lies to the inspector general. And so last night when the PS and I were seized of the matter and we were asking them, what is the fact about this? You discover there was no OB entry, there was no B3 given, there was no report taken, and therefore, even be told that these people are going to court, they're not going to go to court. It's a lie. And so I asked the Inspector General, and he can confirm to you, I hope he confirms to us that that senior police officer has been disciplined or interdicted. And then we follow through, and I also told the DCIO, follow up even the minders of those people, even if they are political leaders or whatever they are, they also should meet the law. We are not going to help this country if we behave in this kind of irresponsible manner. And this has nothing to do with the Inspector General or Mr. Mbowa, the DIG. I keep asking for the men in the room, how many of you will stand your sister or your wife being slapped in that kind of manner? How many of you? I mean, how would you feel? We are not heartless as public officers. We are also human beings. I feel angry and bitter like all of you do with these kinds of things. And I want to promise you, honorable members, on that particular matter, I have taken personal interest. I have told the Inspector General of Police, justice must be done. Justice must be done. We cannot lead our people by telling them that some of us are more Kenyan than others, that some of us can be treated in a particular way, and we condone this. A senior officer of that kind has no business being in our police force. He should be sacked and go. Then we hound him, we take him to a magistrate. That's what we do. Just imagine what you go through. They begin with lying to their regional commissioner, who's seeking a genuine report. What have you done about this? They lied to him. Oh, we took our report. We are going to take them to court tomorrow. That time they have not even made even an OB entry. Mr. Kenneth is here. The guy walked into the police station and walked out. So look, honorable members, this is our country together. We'll do the best we can. I can vouch for these people I work with. I know how hard they work and how sincere they are. Sometimes they will be let down by some of our officers. But we will not hide and try to shield them. We will be honest with you and tell you, here is a challenge. And we will resolve the challenge together. And when we start resolving that challenge, it's not about tribes, it's not about regions, it's not about where people come from. It's because we are interested in reforming the security sector and doing the right things that must be done at all times. So I promise you, on my own behalf and on behalf of my colleagues, that as the people who have been given a responsibility by God through our president to manage this security sector, we will do our best. It does not mean we are perfect, but we will be honest when there are challenges, and we will deal with them honestly. And I've shown you the challenges the last 24 hours we have been dealing with. Mr. Boynet, DCI, and myself, Mwea. You know, where people out there, and some of you, when you meet them, honorable members, when you meet some of your colleagues who do some of these things, be candid with them and tell them this is no way to be leaders. And look, there's something that, this is my last point, someone said this week. None of us, honorable members, none of us, even members of our families, don't walk around with their names written on their faces. That could be your sister. That could be your wife. That could be my wife or my sister. And even if they were not, our responsibility is to look after all Kenyans, regardless of whether or not they are related to us. We can't have that kind of situation that you saw the other day. We saw it all on TV. When a lady is slapped in that kind of manner, in the presence of police officers, and what they do is lie. Instead of taking a report, arresting the person, they even lie that she has been given a P3. And there isn't even as much as an OB entry in the police station that this crime was committed here. So my brother, Mr. Boynet, is on it. The DCIO are on it, Mr. Mbogwa. The team are working on this. And we promise that in that and similar cases, we will do our best to level with the Kenyan people and to be honest and do what the law requires us to do and to work as public officers are supposed to work for the good of our country. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause.
Interior CS there, Fred Matiang'i, just finishing opening remarks for a 3-day retreat that is being held in Mombasa on security matters, and as well they're just mentioning what many of us have seen in either social media or mainstream media, that is an election observer in Nyeri being slapped by one of the minders of a politician during a by-election that was held 2 days ago, and yes, promising that action will be taken.